is your 30th meeting between you and Tomlin. Only two other coaches in history of the NFL have met that many times. Have you developed sort of a friendship with him over the years, or it's kind of rivalry?
Yeah, we have a great relationship. I have a lot of respect for Coach Tomlin, for the whole organization over there. I've got other friends in the organization over there. They're players. Everything about the Steelers you have to respect. Always was an admirer of Chuck Noll, and went back and used to still study a lot of things he said. So, yeah, Coach Tomlin and I get along really well, I feel like. But we're certainly rivals because the Ravens and the Steelers are rivals. So we're going to be rivals. And each of us are going to do everything we can to try to help our team win.
John Harbaugh, coach of the Ravens since 2008. Visiting the Steelers, coached by Mike Tomlin since 2007, throwing a couple of playoff meetings, and they know each other as well as any two coaches in the league currently do. And this is a huge one for both teams. Reminds me a little bit of last night's game, though, Peter. Here's the problem. Spirit's willing, but the flesh isn't available because too many guys are injured or on the COVID reserve list like a TJ Watt. It's just the will, the desire. It's hard for one team to match from a talent standpoint the other. The Ravens are just better right now than the Steelers, and the Steelers overachieved when they won those 4 games in a row, but we've seen them in an 0-2-1 tailspin lately. It was very bad against the Bengals on Sunday. It's going to be difficult for the Steelers to muster the will. I think Mike Tomlin's doing everything he can to push buttons on his guys, and the pads were popping earlier this week at practice. They're going to come out and give it everything they have. I just don't know that it's going to be enough.
A couple of things about this game. When I looked at the schedule last week and I was trying to figure out who's in trouble, who's not, whatever, there's one thing about the Steelers who obviously have a must-win here, all right? But when I looked at the schedule, I said, whoa, the Steelers got to have their annual civil war in Pittsburgh against the Ravens. And then on a short week, on Wednesday, they got to get on a plane for Minneapolis and play one of the most explosive teams in football. So this is not a week to have tired legs. This is not a week to be missing TJ Watt. And even if TJ Watt could return for the Minnesota game, to be huffing and puffing because you haven't been working and whatever, you might be weak because of whatever you've just gone through on the COVID list. I mean, this is the Steelers really in a 5-day span, Mike, they're going to determine their status for this season. And quite honestly, they're going to determine also whether Ben Roethlisberger is going to have a future at quarterback beyond the middle of January.
Yeah, and look, I thought you were going to say beyond this season, because I think as we see more and more of his performance,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean, beyond this season, because I don't think they're making the playoffs.
Well, okay then. Let's go there, because I think it's done. Yeah. I think it's over. Look,
I do too.
I said when they worked out the deal that paid him $4 million less for this season back in February, March timeframe, that both sides are going to regret this by November. Now, I didn't say beginning or end of November. We're now past November. And I think if you started attaching people to lie detector tests, they'd say, yeah, this probably wasn't a good idea. They're 5-5-1, and they're pointing down, not up. I can't imagine the Steelers bringing him back next year, and I can't imagine him wanting to play again next year. Do you think either of those things is going to happen?
I don't think so either. But I want to give you a history lesson, Mike. The last quarterback who willingly, maybe not happily, but who willingly took a $4 million haircut was Peyton Manning in 2015. And he did it not happily, but he did it, and he had those things converted to incentives, a big part of which was, if we win the Super Bowl, I get my regularly scheduled money. They end up winning the Super Bowl, he gets his money. The big difference here is that, obviously Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have the team around him to carry him to the Super Bowl the way that Peyton Manning had in 2015 when he walked off the field for the last time as an NFL player, a Super Bowl winner, even though that day he was only a complimentary player. And so I think we're seeing a lot of the same thing, of history repeating itself, where the year that Ben Roethlisberger takes that salary haircut is going to be his last year in football.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. The Ravens have a lot more years with Lamar Jackson, although he had his career worst game with 4 interceptions. He owned it. He said, hey, I looked like a rookie when I watched the film. And I think the hallmark of a great team, Peter, is the ability to win the game, even when your quarterback melts down with 4 interceptions. It's a testament to what else the Ravens have around their quarterback, and that's one of the reasons why I think this is going to be so difficult for the Steelers. The Ravens have so much more around their quarterback than the Steelers have around theirs.
No question about it, and especially with with some of the rising talent you've got on offense. But Mike, I think the one thing, I had Pro Football Focus do a little bit of work for me. They helped me out on a few statistical things. And the fact is that what's happening this year with how bad the Baltimore line has been ravaged by injury at times this year, Lamar Jackson is getting blitzed a lot more this year. And so what that does is that it hurries his decision-making process, and it sort of forces him to throw the ball a little bit earlier than he would want to. And I think that has led to some of his spate in part to his spate of interceptions.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because the game we saw on Sunday night was his first game since that blitz fest against the Dolphins. And even though we didn't see a bunch of defensive backs from the Browns in his face, I think his clock got messed up from that game.
Yes.
And he was getting rid of it faster than he would have, because he was anticipating more of what he saw the last time he was on a football field, which was Dolphins players in his face all night long.
2020, Lamar Jackson was blitzed on 26% of the plays. 2021, it's 37%. And the other interesting little stat is that there are more defenders in the box by almost a full percentage point every snap against Lamar Jackson. So what's going on is that teams are not really hiding the fact that they're coming, and you saw it with Miami. They said, we don't care if you know, we're coming. And those two things, with a line that you don't totally trust, I think you've got to include that in the Lamar analysis.
And I think for the Steelers to have a chance, Peter, then they just have to confuse him. Blitz him like crazy, make him think a blitz is coming, drop a guy into coverage instead. Just do a lot of pre-snap things that has him thinking he's going to get blitzed. Get that clock to accelerate, but then have extra bodies back in the secondary when he does throw the ball before he would otherwise be ready to throw the ball. Look, for the Steelers to win this game, and I think it's going to be close. It always seems to be close. There have been 3 times that the Ravens have been favored to beat the Steelers in the last 15 years, and in Pittsburgh. And all 3 were games where Ben Roethlisberger didn't play, and all 3 games were 3-point victories by the Ravens, 2 in overtime. I think the Ravens will win this one by 3 as well. That'll cover the spread for the Steelers. I still don't completely rule out the Steelers winning, just because this is the classic kind of situation where the Steelers can find a way to will themselves to a win. I know this team for 50 years of growing up around Pittsburgh and living in Pittsburgh and sitting here now 100 miles from Heinz Field. It just feels like the kind of game where they can pull it off. I just think right now the cupboard is too bare for the Steelers to actually get the win.
I think it probably is, Mike. I totally agree with you, but weird things happen in the Steelers-Ravens rivalry. That's all I'll say. I don't know what it's going to be, and maybe this will be an absolutely normal football game. The one other point of caution, 4 of the last 5 games, the Baltimore Ravens have scored 17 points or less. This is not the machine that it was in Lamar Jackson's MVP year. So when you're a team that has trouble scoring, okay, when you're a team that has trouble scoring and you face a team that, even though they might be down some weapons on defense, I mean, they're still going to be facing a good defense on Sunday. Nothing is a lock in this game.
Weird things happen. That'd be a great way for CBS to sell it. Tune in, 4 o'clock Sunday. Weird things happen. Baltimore at Pittsburgh.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.